We're gonna go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, buddy?
Hello. Cool. What's up, man? How's your doing?
Oh, great, man. Just living the dream, work from home life.
Of course.
Delta absolutely ravaging everything I know and love, and as this second lockdown is upon us, it's great. How about yourself?
Same, except I'm not at home. I'm in an office with people who refuse to get vaccinated. So
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
I'm
happy about it.
Have you taken any of your ivermectin yet? And your horse paste?
No, but I did get my microchip.
Okay, fair.
So,
hey, it's your body, your choice, man. Just remember that.
That's true. But that argument only works on one side, depending on what side you're on.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyways, enough about politics, man.
Yeah, we started off hot, right?
Right into politics. Obviously, big thing of the weekend. So today's Monday the 30th. Ida coming
Big
through.
ol' Ida.
Now you avoided it.
I did here in Tejas.
Right in Texas. Yep. In central Louisiana, I'll be honest. So it actually didn't even hit us in Lafayette. So,
like no rain, no wind.
There was about 15 minutes of a little drizzle, and then it was just like a little bit more wind than normal.
Cool.
And when I could see the wall, I could see that hurricane wall, from my window.
I think you're fortunate because one of the very first things I saw was from Grand Isle, and it was that video of that garage that was absolutely getting just pelted. Looked like something out of an apocalypse movie.
Dude, and people stayed in Grand Isle.
Insane.
Seriously, people stayed in Grand. When I heard that, I don't understand. I don't know if do you think it's like people just being stubborn, or is it pride, or do you think like people are just so depressed they're like, just take me?
I have to imagine, like if I was in their shoes, that would be it. It would just bring me to a swift end, have something fall firmly on me.
Like die in your home, you know?
Yeah. I have to imagine for some folks, it's probably maybe like monetary, like it's too expensive to try to travel out, try to find a spot.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, that it would suck to do that, but like so many people are going to be in financial hardship regardless of whether they left or not. You know what I mean?
I also happen to know that Cajuns tend to be some of the most stubborn assholes on the planet. So it's highly possible that
hey,
you know, that's our word, man. We could use that.
Hey,
it's my people too, man. Half.
True.
I'll claim
True. But yeah, the wind was probably, I think, the worst part. Like the rain was fine, right? Like the rain is rain. It is what it is. Like if you flood, you flood. You know what I mean? Like people flood in normal storms too.
Yeah.
Dude, but that wind, did you see what happened with the Mississippi River?
Which part?
So the Mississippi River, the wind was so strong it stopped the river flow in New Orleans and actually reversed it for a small amount of time.
That is so metal. That is like some shit out of an anime, bro.
The Mississippi River, dude, is... How deep... Hold on. How deep does your mom go? How deep...
So does this just confirm that we are like in the end times? Was this just like we had the plague, here was the great storm set to wipe us out and reverse rivers? What's next?
I do think like weather is a lot worse than it was when we were younger, right? Like weather is worse, or maybe when we were younger we just didn't notice, but like I feel like the weather's getting crazy.
I mean, I have to agree with you only because of like recent memory. Like Texas freezing over, North Texas, I should say, was insane.
Dude.
And then for us to have like a Katrina-like event again hit New Orleans on the anniversary, which is insane.
Well, that's just because this is a simulation.
Yeah, for sure. There's just it's repeat, right? We ran out of code, so it started from the top.
Yep. It's been around so long. But that's the Mississippi River, by the way, is 200 feet deep. That's how strong this hurricane was. A 200 foot deep river, the strongest river in the continental United States. I don't know what Hawaii's got, but I know that the Mississippi's the big daddy.
I'm willing to bet they don't have anything to compare.
True.
But I don't know. I'm not going to claim that. I don't know.
They do have the ocean and tsunamis, so.
Volcanoes. They have volcanoes. Which is metal.
Dude, that's sick. Like, it would be sick. It'd be sick to live near a volcano that you knew was not going to erupt, but was still active. Like, I want the best of both worlds.
Or just like a superpower, so you can just get out and fly. Everybody else around you gets fucking Pompeii, covered in dust.
Speaking of superpowers, you know what movie I was thinking about today? And it's not Marvel. It's what's the movie? It's like an indie superhero film with the 3 kids and the 3 dudes. They get power and then they fight near the hospital.
I have
and
no
in the
idea.
street, dude. What's it called? Fuck, hold on. What's the guy's name
movie?
who directed it? It's like indie-ish. I mean, it's not like indie, but it's like it's not a Marvel superhero movie. Landis is the guy I think who made it. Okay, well apparently his dad is also a filmmaker, so I can't just use
Runs in the family.
Chronicle. Do you remember Chronicle?
Chronicle. Dude, I swear that rings 0 bells. Was this a big movie? Like, was it impactful in our generation?
2012, yeah, it's 85% on Rotten Tomatoes. Came out in 2012, $12 million budget.
Wait, doesn't
Michael B. Jordan's in it.
Does it have like a sequel or some?
I don't know.
I feel like I'm forcing memories in my brain. I'm feeling like my mind is playing tricks on me. So I'm just gonna stick to the fact that I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's fine. I think you should watch it. We'll put it on the list.
Okay.
Actually, we'll put it on the list, and the next show I'll have you review it for us. That's what we call continuity.
There you go, man. A little foreshadowing.
Yeah.
A little stay tuned. A little next time on Dragon Ball Z.
That's it. Next time on Dragon Ball Z. Believe in the heart of the cards, Yugi. Anyways, but yeah. So I mean, it fucking sucks, right? Like, in all seriousness, it fucking blows. Which is crazy because normally this would be all people are talking about with football season coming in, right? It's like, oh, how is it going to affect games? And because it's going towards the East Coast now. But no, there's something else that's affecting football games this year. I wonder what that could be.
Is there another worldly event?
I don't know. All right, this is stupid. Delta, fucking unreal, dude. COVID is still here.
Yep, sure is, man.
Do you know that? I'm gonna send you. Hold on. I need to find this meme, and you can see if you can put it. If we can see if you can put it up. But it's I'm gonna be silent for a second. Hold on.
Go for it. Yeah, man. If you had told me that we'd be going through this a second time, I might have had a full-blown mental break.
Dude, well, I was thinking back to, like, it's crazy because we legit, I'm just putting the meme in the Discord. Like, remember when it first started and people were like, oh, this will be a few months, like, just hunker down. I was like, okay, like, I can do a few months.
2 weeks, dude. It started as 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Unreal.
Insane.
It's
and all it took was motherfuckers to stay in their house. They just couldn't do it.
Could not. I mean, honestly, that's on us for thinking that was going to be possible when the South exists.
Dude, it was. When it broke out, I was in New York, and I'm going to tell you,
True.
I lived in an old, like, retirement town, and those old folks were not giving up their lifestyle. They wanted to walk around in their parks and have their conversations and catch up. It was relentless. But I do remember,
to be fair,
I get it. But
at that point,
at the beginning, it was like very frightening. I remember like coming home and like washing off my groceries and like showering immediately after getting back from the grocery store.
And how is it now?
I mean, I try to stay conscious of it, but I just feel like I'm numb. I I try to be more aware of other people. Like I'm not like scared for myself.
For that, by the way.
No, thanks, man. This little humble brag moment, right? It's not really like I don't have any fear for myself, but I do find myself all the time like I'm still afraid to cough in public. I'm still like there's this weird anxiety.
So last week I was having, I don't know if I told you this, I was having COVID symptoms last week. Dude, I was having all the Delta shit, right?
Nice.
And I'm like, man, I think I got it. And look, I'm an overweight guy. I'm in my late 20s. I have asthma. Like, that thing would have intubated me pretty quickly. So I was like, fuck. So I went, I get tested. It's a negative test, right? But everyone in the office knows that I was being tested. Dude, I walked in and I was looked at like I had leprosy. Dude.
They met you with the Lysol bottles just in your face.
Dude, it was so recognizable how much different I got treated. It was unreal. And like, I don't blame them.
Well, here's the
real
question.
I probably would have done a similar thing.
I know that here lately you've been working in a closet, which is not a jab. You've literally been lurking in a closet. Did they lock you in that closet?
No, I swear I got a bigger office now.
Oh, nice. Moving on up in the world.
Moving on up. There's nothing on the walls. It looks like it's very temporary, but I'm in there.
There you go, man.
It's got windows. The only thing is like there is a window that looks straight out into the lobby. And I love all the people I work with. That's not the problem. The problem is the people that like walk in and can just see directly into like whatever I'm doing. Not that I'm doing anything inappropriate most of the time, but it's like sometimes I'm just like, oh, is it weird if I close the blinds? That's like such a weird question.
You did make sure that the back of your computer was facing them, right? Like they can't like see what you're doing.
Right. They cannot. No. They can't see
what I'm looking at. That makes me anxious. If somebody's like watching me work or somebody's watching
right, even if it's like very legitimate work. Yeah, I agree. No. So they can't see my computer, but like they can see me like very clearly, and I can't hide. Like I can't hide anywhere without it being very obvious I'm hiding.
That's right.
But anyways, so if you have COVID symptoms, just know that people are going to look at you like you have leprosy.
It is also a good way, if you're antisocial or introverted, to get people to leave you alone.
Sure, pretend to have COVID.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No more complaints there, I don't think, either.
Nah.
Yeah.
It's overrated.
Cool.
Overrated.
Another great movie, Big Fat Liar. The Truth. It's never overrated.
I have not seen that movie.
Dude, Frankie Muniz.
Since it was in theaters, and the only lasting impression it made on me was him turning blue. So... He
did turn blue, but not in like because he was lying sense. Yeah. They just dyed his pool. Yeah, exactly. And then dyed his hair orange. Oh, what was it? Wait, what's that guy? What's that actor's name? The guy who played the guy.
Was it Giamatti that was
Paul? Yes. No, is it Paul Giamatti?
I think so. Yeah,
I think so. Let's see. Big Fat Frankie Muniz, Amanda Bynes. Yeah, Paul Giamatti.
Amanda Bynes.
Man, what happened to her?
I don't know. I mean, how can you come back? Like, how can you top your start if your start is the Amanda Show? If you're bringing in the Dancing Lobsters, you can't top that. You've started at the peak.
Can you do? All right, we're each gonna do our best. Bringing the Dancing Lobsters impersonation. Okay, you ready? I'll go first. Bring out the Dancing Lobsters.
I don't think I can top that, man. So I'm just gonna let you have it. I'm gonna crown you the winner.
Boo.
I mean, it was perfect. It was perfect.
Boo.
Dude, take your victory, man.
Anyway, it's fine. I'll take it. I do need victory here.
You Jake Paul'd me. I was Woodley in this scenario, and you Jake Paul'd
Did you watch any of the fight?
No, I was following like the.
You missed nothing, by the way.
I don't know if it's like a ticker or what, but I was following like the round by round thing on ESPN.
Yeah.
I am now wholly. So here's what's confusing, and I know we weren't planning on talking about this, but I have to say this. So during the pandemic, I think like a lot of people, I've gotten very into combat sports, like specifically UFC. It's been a nice change of pace. Like it's depending on who's fighting on a given weekend, it's a lot of fun. You can make a night out of it. And because of that, like this weird YouTube version of boxing that that is capturing the world has also got my attention.
Right.
But here's what I don't understand. I don't know much about the Paul brothers. Prior to them fighting, I could never tell them apart. Like, they were one and the same to me.
Right.
I can now tell them apart and understand that Jake is actually a really good boxer, right? Logan,
Yes.
Logan, not so much.
Logan's doing it because there's money involved, right? But I do genuinely think Jake like cares about being a good boxer. And you can see even in the Woodley fight, like Woodley's almost 40 years old and he's only ever been an MMA fighter his whole life. So like besides what I'll get to in a second, like I do hope Jake's next fight is against an actual real boxer so he can start actually boxing, because I do think he's got like, he works hard at it. Whether or not he's got skill, like I haven't been a fan long enough to know if what he has is skill or not.
Yeah.
But like it, at the very least, I hate the Paul brothers, right? But like I respect them because at the very least, like, do you want to step into a freaking boxing ring with Tyron Woodley, a former UFC champion?
Dude, I don't
Like,
want to step in the boxing ring with anyone,
including me.
I'm prone to get my ass beat real easy.
Yeah, true. But it, like,
I'm a tiny
like,
guy. I'll get outpowered.
True. Hey, give yourself some more credit.
I got no reach. It's like, it's not good for anybody.
But so I'm impressed just by him actually going out and doing it. Like, is it all a stunt just to make more money? Possibly. It's very possible.
Well, see, that's actually what I was going to say, is like, what I don't understand is I'm actually fully convinced of two things: that Jake is a good boxer, but that it's all rigged, right? Like, I have to imagine that, like, you know, everybody's going to get a bag in this process. Everyone knows that going into it. And so the result's almost irrelevant. But what I don't understand is why hasn't Logan done what Jake did? Jake has clearly protected both his boxing image and the bag, because he's agreeing to fights that he can win and has won, and Logan is winless. So whoever is in Jake's camp that's not in Logan's, there's some real strategic misses on that part. Well, I don't understand why Logan's gonna go fight Floyd Mayweather, who you know will never agree to take a fall just for the money. Like, why not go get somebody like Jake is doing and fucking hold your own and win a couple rounds and get the fucking money and the win?
Because, like I said earlier, I think for Logan, I think it's just for the money and for like the content. Like, he's doing it for the tent, I think. But doing it for the tent.
I like that.
But Jake, I think Jake genuinely wants to be a good boxer, right? Like, I think he genuinely, and look, he's always going to sell a fight, so he's a very attractive prospect business-wise, because you know he's going to sell a fight. And he's got like certain skills to where he could probably win early in his career. Like, he's not going to have to take these beatings that a lot of these boxers do just to learn how to fight in a ring.
Well, the true testament for him is when is he going to stop doing exhibition and actually fight WBC boxers?
Right.
That's going to be the shift, and I feel like it's coming. But he then runs the risk of getting his ass canvassed. If all of this truly is for show, I agree.
Right.
I think he's a good boxer. I think it is legit. I've seen the way he prepares. I've seen some highlights of his fights. Like, he's got a pretty heavy hand and is a pretty decent boxer. But I want to see him, like you said, I want to see him fight a boxer, not a past prime UFC guy. Like, it's just, he's done that twice now, and it's like, it's going to start losing its appeal. You're going to have to get in there and go toe-to-toe with a guy who boxes. Well,
that's the thing, too, is I'm not, like, I think he has skill to be a boxer, but he's not a boxer right now, right? Because he's not fighting boxers. He fought Nate Robinson, who's half his height, half his weight, and is a basketball player. And he fought Ben Askren, who was coming off a hip replacement surgery. And now Tyron Woodley, who looked so uncomfortable in the ring. Like, Tyron Woodley has actual knockout power, and they went round for round. Now, it was a split decision. Some judge gave Woodley more rounds than Jake, which is bananas because Jake won probably 9 out of 10 rounds. Or they went 8, so 7 out of 8. But like past that, he's not a real boxer until he actually fights a boxer. So if he never fights a boxer, he's never been a real boxer, in my opinion. Like he's not going to be considered in the sport, you know?
Yeah, there was like one moment that I've seen on repeat, which was basically that fucking hook that Woodley connected.
And
like it
Paul was on the
Jake.
ropes.
Yeah, he had him on the ropes, but did nothing to like continue that barrage, which is when I knew. I was like, Woodley understands right now that he's got to back off to protect both of their money.
Right.
Like, which there's probably going to be a lot of people who think that's sleazy, but for somebody who's like been a competitor their whole life and a professional fighter and a championship level fighter, to have enough discipline to not knock that punk out when he's there on the ropes just to protect everybody's money is I gotta give him kudos. He stuck to the script. Good for him.
Right, and that's the reason people are considering it to be. That's like the biggest proof, I guess you can say, of it being rigged. Which, like, I can't say I blame them because when you're a fighter, you're taught to go for blood, right? When that happens, like I feel like any other fighter would have gone after him, but Woodley didn't. Like, I don't know. It might be rigged, and if it is, you know what? They duped a whole lot of people into buying a fight, and they got a bag. So who am I to judge? You know?
Yeah, both of those guys made a lot more than I made last night. That's all I'll say. You know,
I lost money last night, so only because I ate, and I don't know. It was funnier in my head.
It's all right.
Anyways, but yeah, I think I'm tired of the YouTube boxing, but I am becoming a very big fan of real fighting. I think it's entertaining and it's fun, and of course Dustin Poirier, the Diamond, shout out. Gotta watch my guy.
Yeah, well, I'm a Conor guy, so I do recognize and appreciate what Dustin has done, but his wife was in Conor's DMs. Oh.
Yeah, and why do you think Conor never actually opened the message?
Bro, they smashing. Stop playing.
Okay, yep, all right.
Stop
True.
playing. He's on the burner.
True.
It's times like these I wish I could do a solid Conor impression, but I can't. So,
honestly, I could. It's just going to be offensive. So,
yeah, dude. I mean, does it count if it's against the Irish? Isn't that like primo?
You're thinking of the French.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Close though.
I was just gonna say no one's ever hesitated to make fun of a redhead, so that's a first. We've made history here tonight.
Well, it's also because McGregor's like the last guy in the world I want to make fun of. So,
yeah,
he'll haunt my dreams.
I mean, he's the Terminator now. He said it himself. He's got that metal leg. It's game over.
There's no way he comes back better. Like if he was like early 20s, I'd be like, oh, maybe he can come back and make some waves. But like, there's no way he comes back better, right?
Well, I mean, did you watch?
Put your fandom aside.
No, did you watch the fight? Did you have you seen
the Poirier McGregor fight?
Yeah, the most.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
So Dustin was kind of kicking his ass. Like he had that opportunity. Conor had the opportunity to submit early, and for some reason let go of the guillotine or couldn't finish it, whatever. And then from that point forward, Dustin was kind of dominating, and I have no reason to believe that wouldn't have continued. So it almost works in his favor that happened, and he can hold on to the fact that he didn't truly lose the rubber match. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so I think on the guillotine part, I mean, that's kind of Dustin's thing is like wrestling and stuff and jiu-jitsu, right? Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So, like, if you're McGregor, who's really a big stand-up kickboxing guy, like going for a guillotine on a guy who very clearly knows how to put people in one and get out of one, like, just wasn't the smartest decision. Like Dustin looked so calm when that was happening. Like you just knew that it wasn't going to take. But further on, you're right, because all of Conor's career, the first round has always been his best round. So yeah, you can say like, oh well, he wait till he got to the second or third. It's like there's nothing in Conor's career to tell you that that's the case. If he even had one or two fights where his second, third, fourth rounds were like better, I'd be like, okay, like maybe, but that's just not how McGregor fights.
Well, Conor is a very striker. He strikes first. He's ground game second, which can work. It usually works a lot better in some of the heavier weight classes. What's unfortunate, I think, about the whole thing is that, like, as a fighting fan, there was a time where Conor was an all-timer. He hasn't been in a while, but I mean, at one point he held 2 division belts. You know, I mean, he was dominating guys that were, you know, had been on the perch for a long time. Like before the money came, before all of that, before the whiskey sales, like he was a legit fighter. And unfortunately, I feel like he got popular. He pushed the UFC popular. It continued to grow. And people are kind of like disrespectful to his legacy because his mouth has been a lot stronger than his performance in the last couple fights. And that's kind of unfortunate. I would have liked to see the fight go. I think he would have lost, but I would have liked to see it go and be ultra competitive. Maybe get Dustin wobbly a couple times. I think that would have been good for Conor. It would have been good for the sport. But.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's the thing is like Dustin's not like the best athlete or like he's not the best fighter there, but like the guy has a chin and he just knows how to get out of bad situations, and that's kind of just what he does. You're right. I think I would have liked to see the fight go on, but like there is nothing there's nothing in the world that you can show me to show that like anything would have been different, you know, for that. So but I'm with you. I think McGregor's probably, I don't know how Hall of Fame works in UFC. I'm assuming if you hold 2 titles at one time, like that probably should be an automatic ticket. But but you're right. Like you can't talk like Conor does and then lose. Like that can't happen because then no one's going to take you seriously anymore. And that's his problem right now. Is he's talking like he's holding 2 belts and he's like nowhere close.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't even imagine the toll, like the age rapiding, whatever the word is, escalating, accelerating your aging when you're a fighter. I can't when you're in your 30s, early 30s, and you're still trying to fight at the top level, you've probably taken so many ass beatings that it's like, it's tough to make any impact. So you got to strike. Got to strike when it's hot.
Yep. So, I mean, we'll see. I know some people want a Poirier-McGregor rematch, but like, you can't. Poirier is the number 1 contender for the belt, and like he, whether people like him or not, I think some people think he's too much of a square for fighting, but like, he's earned a shot at the title. At the very least, he's earned a shot at the title, and McGregor has to prove he can win at this point. Like, he's got to go and fight someone else. Wouldn't you want him to, though? Like, I know McGregor doesn't want to, but if you're Dana White, wouldn't you want to move Conor down a bit and get his fire back? Because if he can't beat someone outside of the top 10, then okay, well, it's over. It's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it plays into... I think Dana is not going to place Conor on a fight if he's not the main event. Like, if he's not the final fight of the night, Dana's going to be really resistant to putting him on anything. And in the scenario you just described, like, that's not a main event style fight. Like, if you've got, he'll probably be, I mean, I don't want to put a number on it, but he'll probably be like the 8th or 9th contender now in his weight class. Like, who are you going to put him up against to warrant? Yeah, he may be, you could put him on the main card, but for him to be the main event, that's... And I don't think Conor or Dana will agree to that. Right.
Well, and I mean, we're talking about this now. Like, Conor's not going to be ready to fight for another, year and a half? Like, Dustin could very well lose twice in that span. and then everyone would be like, you know what? I'd like to see a rematch.
Yeah.
So who knows? But all of that to say, I've gotten very into fighting. I don't know as much about it as I'd like, but I'm learning. Because I think it's very interesting, like the weight classes and the numbers and how people can move up and down, and I don't know. I think it's cool.
It's also just like easy to watch. Like
the
3 rounds and then the 5 rounds for the main event. Like it's fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's weird that you crave sports that go by fast, but it's high stakes, high action the whole time. You don't have to invest. It doesn't require a whole bunch of attention span from you. It
doesn't require a whole day.
It's not like watching a baseball game where I have to watch every fucking pitch and hope that I get some payoff. Like it's just all action.
Yeah, baseball sucks. Yeah, how was the Rangers game?
It was good. We got home plate tickets for Rangers Astros. Astros won. I believe it was like 5-2 or something like that.
The Rangers are dog shit. So.
Oh yeah, they are one of the worst teams in baseball. In fact, one of the worst professional teams I've seen in a really long time. They traded away like what little talent they had. But it was actually really cool. I'd never had home plate tickets. We got Lexus Club passes, which was basically like this area underneath our seats that was like free buffet, free drinks. Everything was complimentary all night, so nice. Like we could get beers for free. We tipped obviously, but it was a lot of fun.
Right.
We saw a few home runs early, which was good. I'm glad it wasn't a defensive game. It's good to see some pop. Bregman was back. It was his second night back. He had a pretty good night, so it was a lot of fun.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, I when I was up there, I wasn't able to go with COVID and stuff. But so tell me, yes or no, that new stadium looks like a outdoor grill, right?
It is the ugliest outdoor stadium I have ever seen. It looks like a barn, right. Like a just
inside gorgeous inside.
Well, here's what's interesting is like inside it's breathtaking how nice it is, but it's like not what you expect. It's actually very small because they built it like vertical. So like there are actually like really shitty seats in that stadium because it's not built with perspective in mind. Like it wasn't built out wide so that you have a good view no matter where you're at. Like there's some harsh corners in there, and I don't know why they did this. But it's kind of a small, intimate stadium, which is kind of nice. I mean, like you feel closer to the fans. It's everyone's a little bit more packed in on the field. But yeah, outside of it, hideous. And when you consider that it's right across the street from what was old Ranger Stadium, that still looks like a top 15 ballpark. Like it's clean. It's got a good aesthetic look to it. Like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why it was built, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're doing something with it, right? Like the only thing I can think is they're trying to expand Texas Live, and make a bit more like of an area there. But I don't know. You're right. I think the other stadium looks a lot better on the outside, and then I think on the inside too. Personally, I think it was a little cooler, but only because like the new stadium is very higher tech and a little more modern.
I mean, they clearly built it to be multi-purpose, like, and I also have an issue with that. I'm also like baseball clings to a tradition. I think baseball needs to be played outside, and I think that it needs to be not that you can't use it for other purposes, but don't design a park with concerts in mind or like other things. Like Arlington has become like that's what it's about. Like it's got these two sports teams and the Cowboys and the Rangers, but it's really just like an entertainment sector where like anything can be at any moment.
Yeah, true. But yeah, so I hate baseball. Baseball sucks. It's stupid. Could totally do away with it and I wouldn't care.
Yeah, it's tough, man. You know what's really unfortunate and why I think baseball is just like, this is how you know it's dead, is like I can't remember a time when baseball had this many young stars. Like, you know, you've got Tatis, you've got Guerrero, like Ohtani's doing his thing, and nobody gives a shit. Like we went straight from watching basketball to being hyped about football, and baseball still gets no love. It's like People just
which is
aren't drawn
crazy
to it.
because Otani's doing something that like hasn't been done since Babe Ruth.
Yeah,
Right? Is that the word?
Well, I mean, it's almost. I mean, what he's doing is almost unheard of. Like you watch it, and you almost have to pinch yourself. Like it's. But again, like you couldn't. If I'm gonna watch a baseball game on TV, rest assured I'm doing something else. Like I'm doing laundry or I'm like cleaning the apartment. Like if you're gonna, I have no way in hell am I gonna sit there for 9 innings and watch every pitch. It's just not gonna happen.
I agree. Even like game 7s, man, I try to hype myself up for like game 7s in October. I'm like, man, this is where it's at. And then I watch a few innings. I'm like, this sucks. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And I know people are like, oh, well, but the only thing I will give baseball, the one thing I do like is that you can't run out of clock. You can't, get penalties to improve any sort of situation to my knowledge. Like each team has the same amount of outs, and whoever has the more runs at the end of those outs wins the game.
Yeah.
I appreciate that part of it, but it's just so hard to watch.
Yeah, not a good time at all.
So, but to your point earlier, football, I'm so excited about football being back.
Hell yeah.
Obviously, we'll be watching this weekend. I will be in Pasadena.
Hell yes.
If I make it. And me and my dad are going to the Rose Bowl, which will be sick. And I love going to these games and stuff, and it's awesome, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I am a little bummed I'm missing some of those games.
See, that is the downside to opening weekend travel. You're so hyped to watch your team, and it's great, especially if it's a night game, because you spend the entire day invested in that game you're attending that night. You miss so much throughout the day. You miss those, there's some heavy hitting Big Ten football early on in the day. Yep. I mean, there's several really. I wouldn't call them quality. Like when you've got Miami and Bama, I don't really think that's going to be much of a game. But you've got a lot of big brands going at it. It's just the bad part is that, and I'll be at the first LSU game or whatever the week after. It is what it is. But the first week is it's like the only week until like week 4 that has any sort of meaningful football, right? And so it does kind of suck that I'm missing it. Like there are some intriguing games, like Oklahoma Tulane, right? It's like very intriguing to me. Not that I think Tulane's going to win, but I just think that would be like a really fun game to see. And then Penn State Wisconsin, huge Big Ten game. Like that's such a big game to have week 1. That's an end of season conference championship push style game. That's happening week 1.
Or like mid-November, you're a few games out and you're still in the hunt. Like when it's not all been decided, right?
Exactly.
Like you're still kind of in the hunt.
Drama.
I think Alabama Miami can definitely be closer than people think it's going to be. But I'm with you. I like by the fourth quarter, I think it'll be over.
So here's what's really interesting about this season is it's like there's so much quarterback turnover this year. I don't really know if it's going to introduce any real parity into who the top dogs are, but it's also really intriguing to try to figure out, who's going to settle the fastest, because you're going to have a lot of guys seeing their first big action here this weekend and beyond. And I'm interested to see how it plays out. There's the usual suspects, right? But when you consider the top 3 programs in football right now, all replacing their quarterbacks, and being Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, it's interesting. It's interesting to see how it's gonna pan out.
And I know there's a game that you are excited to talk about.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's announce this here. Let's put it on the record. Upset alert. Texas will fall to the Ragin' Cajuns this Saturday. It's gonna happen. I'm telling you.
You Lafayette, baby.
Hey man, those Cajuns, they're gonna do something. They're fired up. They're coming off their first 2 10-win seasons back to back.
They're not a bad team.
They're not. They're well coached. I think they've got a lot of buy-in. I think those kids enjoy playing for that guy. And
Napier.
and Texas blows, dude. Texas, that whole program is such a dumpster fire, and I cannot wait. It's so funny, right? Like with the whole SEC merger coming up, I have the distinct privilege of being surrounded by Texas A&M fans all the time. Very upset that Texas is moving in.
Right.
But it's so evident that they're still going to dominate them on the recruiting trail. They will still be the team of Texas in the SEC. Like, they have nothing to worry about. Oklahoma is going to hurt, I think, the West recruiting a little bit. I think it's going to happen based on their brand, but Texas is not to be feared. They've got a long way to go before they right that ship. So I think this will be yet another opening weekend disappointment for the old Longhorns.
And I know people are excited about Steve Sarkisian, and he did, honestly, he was awesome last year as like an offensive coordinator from that standpoint. It is so much easier to call plays when you have Mac Jones, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, John Mechie. Like, these are guys that, like, you don't really have to make an effort to get them open. No, like they're going to be open. So it's so much easier to game plan for that than when you're dealing with, like, you may have a 5-star straggler on that Texas team, but most of those guys are going to be 3 and 4 stars that need help.
Yeah.
So I don't see him doing anything better or different than I already forgot his name.
Who's that? Herman?
Herman. Jesus Christ. That's how forgettable he was.
He was worth forgetting. For sure.
But here's what's crazy. That's how big the brand of Texas is. That, like, we're talking about it, and there's games like Wisconsin, Penn State, LSU, UCLA, which we literally are LSU people, and Georgia, Clemson. Like, we haven't even touched those. Like, that's how big of a brand Texas is. So you're right. They're going to come in, and I think it's good for the SEC. I think people are going to say it's not. I think it's good for college football. But
it's just it's frustrating for me. This is usually one of my points of contention with Texas, with USC, at times Notre Dame, even though they've made a couple playoff appearances. I have an issue with there have been teams that have on and off or very consistently performed at a very high level, like modern, like 2010s. Like, I'm talking post BCS era. And yet we still fucking use history as a weapon. And it's no disrespect, right? Like, I understand what they did for the game in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but I don't give a shit, man. The game has evolved and it's moved past them. And until they can prove they can keep up, I don't want to talk about them like they're prime programs, because they're not. I have the same sort of issue with Michigan. They continue to push this narrative that they're true competitors in their conference. And I think year in and year out, they're typically the 4th best team in their conference. It's just frustrating for teams that are actually out there competing. And I'm not even like throwing our team in it. I'm just saying, like, there are teams out there who are much more silent than these teams that actually deserve some praise.
Well, LSU deserves everything coming to them after last season, to be fair. But but it's not like Texas can't get better, because they have everything else other than the on-field success. Like, even in recruiting, they're not terrible in recruiting, but they literally just can't put it all together. So I don't know. But I mean, hey, if UL Lafayette goes in and wins that game, obviously it would take a whole lot of other work, but, like, as long as they don't drop another Sunbelt game, like, they could find themselves at least in the conversation. Because I personally don't think we're ever going to see a group of 5 team in a 4-team playoff. I just don't think that, like, I think it's going to be something that is fun to talk about at the beginning of the season. And then as we get to the end of the season, I think all of the bigwigs in that room are going to be like, but we don't really want to see them. They're not going to sell tickets and won't them in. So I don't think it matters what UL Lafayette does this season. I don't think they're getting in regardless. But this win would put them in the conversation for quite a few months.
I think you have to appreciate what they've done, though. I mean, it's a group of 5 team that we don't talk about, we being national, not necessarily we as in us, right? They don't get the same love that, if Cincinnati's popping off as they were last year and are expected to this year, we're gonna throw some love on them. We're gonna make an argument for them. You're not gonna do that because UL's kind of a new brand in the mix. But considering how they've improved year in and year out, and there was last year being the only ranked team in Louisiana, like those are big things, right? Those are big items for them to wield, and they're trending in the right direction. But I do agree, it's just too hard to make a case for a group of 5 in the playoff as it stands. You just
now something we didn't mention is UL Lafayette is kind of one of those border teams that if you're the Big 12 and you want to stay around, UL Lafayette could play themselves into a Power 5 bid.
Yeah, they could pull a TCU, right? The perfect timing, right? The timing is in their favor. Win 11-12 games, go into a big bowl game, show out. Get invited.
Right there.
Yeah, get invited to one of the New Year's Six and win. Yeah, it's
right
on
there.
The table for them.
It's right there. It's them. I mean, like other teams to maybe replace. Like I think Houston is a candidate for that. I would assume Tulane's not in that conversation, but like is a team they would want to look at, right? I'm going through. I mean, I don't think Notre Dame would accept a Big 12 invite. I think Notre Dame, if they're forced to join a conference, it's going to be the ACC. But
they have other sport interests in remaining in the ACC. The ACC bolsters their basketball program, so that probably will be the only conference they would even consider. And they don't want to be in the Big Ten because that's all of their big rivals, and they're chicken shit and don't want to face them. So,
right. But yeah, I think it's there's going to be a lot this season that doesn't revolve around football, like the actual games themselves that are interesting. Because Texas and Oklahoma are obviously going to be under the microscope, joining the SEC, and these other teams, like, as much as people don't know what's going to happen with the Big 12, personally, I think they just dissolve. But if they do decide they want to stick around, like, it's UL Lafayette, Houston, SMU. They're going to have to add 4 too. They have to go to 12.
Yeah.
So, like Memphis would be an interesting team. Like I don't know who they add, and I don't know who they can add to make them like, oh man, no, they're still definitely a Power 5, because I don't think they're going to be.
Well, I think they also have to be careful too, because I think they got a lot of pushback from adding West Virginia, right? And what that did to scheduling and traveling. So they've got that bad taste in their mouth of what happens if we go into Tennessee, Virginia area and try to pull teams in. I mean, what does that do to us? It's kind of interesting, the whole conference merger thing. It took some wild turns in the last couple of weeks with the potential super conference of ACC, Pac-12, and Big Ten,
which ended up being basically a non-event.
Well, what's funny is this is all anecdotal, but what I think is funny is, so a lot of the dialogue started because the Pac-12 was butthurt that they produced so many non-football high-tier athletes, and they weren't getting the love and respect that they thought that they deserved. Well, something tells me when they got in bed with the ACC and the Big Ten started swinging that football dick around, and the Pac-12 wanted nothing to do with it anymore. Because notice, they brought those conferences together and then immediately were the first to say, yeah, we're not going to realign. So I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall, because they should have seen that the Big Ten was going to bully them out of anything they thought they deserved. But
for me, the reason that I don't put any stake into what they did, and I think it's just all for show, is so that press conference happens, right? And I think like the next day, LSU and USC announced that they were going to be playing in Las Vegas in 2024. So it's like, oh, okay, so you were like, well, this includes scheduling and this and that. And it's like, okay, but why is USC still scheduling an SEC team?
Yeah, still using an SEC brand to bring in viewership.
To bring it to sell tickets and make money, basically. And that to me is like, oh, this alliance is literally just a show to try and get people to stay in their conferences, which I don't think is going to happen. Not because I think people are all going to leave to go to the SEC or whatever, but I don't think the NCAA is long for the world.
So let's play this thought experiment out. Does the Big 12 actually make it through its 2024 mark? Or did it dissolve prior? No. Yeah.
It's next. I mean, this is the last season we get of Texas, Oklahoma in the Big 12. Yeah. And I think the Big 12 gets 1 year without them, and they're going to be at 8 teams for 1 year. And then I think the college football playoff is going to be like, hey, either add some decent teams or like you're out. Like you're not a Power 5 anymore.
Well, what's interesting about that too is that status actually helps the Pac-12, because in recent memory, the Pac-12 has had a really bad track record of just barely missing the playoffs because their front runner can't close out a season.
Right.
But in light of the only other competition being a Texas and Oklahoma-less Big 12, that gives the Pac-12 a little bit more wiggle room to enter into a 14 playoff, right? You can get in with the second loss now, whereas before, Oklahoma's going to jump you with a second loss, right? Like,
well, they also get to come in and pluck Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. So,
well, and that's the thing too, is it's like that. I mean, who becomes the flag bearer of the Big 12 with those teams gone? Like Oklahoma State immediately comes to mind, but the drop off is absurd. Like it's. I mean, Iowa State recently,
but they've only been good, right? Exactly. Like there's no like Oklahoma State's at least been in the conversation multiple times in the last decade,
right? But if we're taking the landscape currently as it sits, I mean, I really don't even know what feather you put in your cap. Like, there's just no way it survives.
Yeah. Well, because and you'd have to have a team go undefeated. You can't have a team lose to Kansas or Kansas State with 8 teams in your conference. Like it can't happen. So there's no other like option for them. You know, like they either add teams or they're done.
Yeah.
So
I think honestly, you hit it on the head. I think the Sun Belt and Conference USA are going to be under the microscope from the Big 12, and they're going to go in there and try to figure out, can these teams actually compete? Can they win? Yeah. Can they be, because this is what the last time we had conference realignment, in general, the teams that realigned performed pretty well. I think Nebraska is really the only team that hasn't been able to find their footing, but Utah has done well. Colorado's had decent years. A&M and Missouri have a good track record from what they've done. We haven't really seen a realignment go bad, right? So the Big 12 goes and plucks, like you said, Memphis and UL, whatever it ends up being, and then those teams can't compete. They can't stay at that Power 5 level. Then you basically did it for nothing. You're still going to dissolve. So
well, and it was also telling when the Pac-12, the Big 10, and the ACC did this alliance, and they said in their statement or whatever that. We want to be with the Big 12 as well and all of this. And someone brought up a good point. They're like, then why weren't they invited? Because it's very clear that the Big 12 is already being treated like a Group of 5 conference, which they should be at this. Like, honestly, if you take out even just Oklahoma, I think they're a Group of 5 conference.
I mean, I agree. I don't. The ACC isn't even a one-team carry the same way the Big 12 is in terms of actually being competitive.
Right.
Like,
Clemson's just been that much better, and it's clear. Clemson's been that much better that it seems like a one-team conference, whereas the Big 12, if you just take regular season, like it looks the same way, right, as the ACC with Oklahoma. It looks like it's like, that they're good or whatever, and Oklahoma's that much better. But then Oklahoma gets to the playoff and you see, oh, they're not. That's how bad the Big 12 is. Is that it's very clear that even the best team can't hang with, like, their cream of the crop. Their number one can't even hang with the best of the other three. It's just clear.
Yeah, the drop off is always brutal.
But anyways, so I mean, that was a big rabbit hole, right? Because who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But that's going to be part of outside of COVID, right? And outside of Texas, Oklahoma. I think that's one that people aren't talking about. Is that sort of what teams are we going to talk about as far as joining the Big 12? Because you know, ESPN's going to love to talk about that.
Oh,
like game day, dude. The game day segments they're going to have, it's going to be crazy.
So what I'd like to do at this kind of pivot point is, excuse me, is I'm going to pull this up here. We'll take a look at this week 1 schedule here. Anything that grabs your eye, by all means, shout it out. I'll do the same. Looking at the Thursday games, obviously Ohio State, Minnesota is going to kind of carry the torch on that initial Thursday.
Dude, honestly, Bowling Green, Tennessee. And I'm not kidding. I want to see if Tennessee's actually decent, because all we've heard about for the last 5 years is that they're getting better. They're getting better. Like, if they lose to Bowling Green, we should send Tennessee to the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. It has been tough to be a Tennessee fan. I can imagine. It's been a rough few years for them.
So bad. I'm excited to see Sam Howell on Friday.
Yeah.
With North Carolina. I didn't see all that much that told me that he was like such a better quarterback prospect than anyone else in this draft, but I think he's a good player, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, so the Big Ten is wasting no time just getting in, this Michigan State Northwestern team, not playoff contenders, but kind of at the same level in their conference, might beat up on each other, might give us some good football there on that Friday night. Moving into the Saturday, we talked about Oklahoma, Tulane. I'm with you. I don't think Tulane will make it truly competitive, but they might make it. It's
interesting enough. Like, it's interesting that if I had multiple screens, it would be on one of the screens.
And let me tell you, I'm here to say I'm fearful of 11 o'clock games as a fan. I don't like them. I hate them. Yeah. It always feels like an opportunity to take the field sleepy and lose to an inferior opponent. So, especially week 1. I mean, I hope they had a good camp. I hope Rattler's everything they're hyping them up to be, because if they come out slow, Tulane could probably make them sweat a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously Penn State, Wisconsin is this the biggest conference game you've ever seen week 1? Like, I'm trying to think back. Like, the SEC never does conference games week 1. I don't remember seeing a game this big in conference.
Yeah, I can't remember one in recent memory.
Because all it takes is a slip up, right? From like any team, in this game becomes so important.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I've said, I give no. Michigan is trending in the wrong direction, so that is your heir apparent to Ohio State. Should things go south very quickly in Columbus, which I don't expect they will, but those are the two teams that are going to try to lurk there and get a piece of Ohio State. Stanford, Kansas State, again, not playoff contenders, but that game is going to be in Arlington. Kickoff game. Could give some
$5. Dude, you can show up and still catch LSU game later.
Hell yeah, man. Maybe make a day of it. Could be interesting.
Yeah. Bama, Miami. We kind of touched on already. Indiana, Iowa. What the hell is up with Big Ten?
Are they?
This is crazy.
They do have non-conference opponents this year, right?
Yeah.
Because that's so strange to see them all that must just be a new thing to generate interest, I guess. I feel like I missed something here, but yeah.
Yeah, Kent State, Colorado State on Iowa's schedule.
So I'm going to tell you, man, the last couple of years, Indiana has been creeping upwards. They've been real competitive with Ohio State in recent years. Could be a sleeper in the Big Ten. We'll see how they tackle that first one.
We talked about ULL, Texas. What were you gonna say?
No, that's what I was about to say. That we had already kind of touched on that.
Texas Tech Houston is like it's not a game you really care about, but I feel like that would be fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. The Houston faithful will be in NRG, so maybe.
Ooh, Abilene Christian, SMU, a little Texas battle.
Oh,
again in Dallas, dude.
man, I'm just gonna hop around.
We didn't talk much about Georgia Clemson.
Well, I was kind of saving it because
Yeah.
it doesn't really require any hyping up. To be honest with you, I have big questions about both of these teams. In Georgia's case, Kirby is a hack and a cheater, and I can't stand him. I don't really know what their team is going to be like, but I know that they're one of the few teams that actually has returning quarterback play, so that may work in their favor. Clemson, I assume, will continue to be Clemson, but this game has intrigue because there's a lot I don't know about these two teams.
True. And you know what's crazy? At the end of the day, this game is not really going to matter for either team.
That's
what's crazy.
People always are like, there are some teams that are like attracted to like big opening day games. Bama, LSU, Georgia, they do this because they know, man, if they drop that first game, you got an entire season to write. It makes it tough.
You got a whole SEC schedule.
Your room for error is almost zero, but it doesn't actually matter. And yet both of these teams could very easily make a playoff push.
Because the thing in the SEC is you can't really lose a game anyways. Like,
true.
There usually is a team that rises to the top. So, like, you really can't drop a game in conference schedule anyways, right? Like, normally I'd be like, yeah, you're right. But, like, you're not winning the SEC if you lose a game in the regular season most of the time. Sometimes it's fine. Like in the East, like, it could happen. But if you're in the West, like, it's just not happening.
I mean, you live a reality when you play in the SEC West and in the SEC in general that if you want to get where you want to go, you have to beat the very best. Like, and you don't, I mean, it is what it is. You have to go through everybody. You don't get to duck. You don't get an easy path. You know, it is what it is. You accept that going in. Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that game. I'm just going to point this out. Texas A&M, way overrated.
100%.
Just that ranking seems just out of place to me. Of course, LSU, UCLA. We both watched UCLA this past weekend with a little intrigue. Obviously, some personal investment in it. I wasn't ultra impressed with what I saw. I think that quarterback they had takes a lot of risks, and I think he can get banged up both physically and emotionally if he tries to do some of the same things.
We're going to learn a whole lot about LSU, and I don't think we're going to learn too much about LSU's offense. I think it's going to be the defense we're going to learn a lot about. And that's going to be make or break this year, right? Like LSU's defense playing good versus bad is the difference between like 10-2, 11-1, or 7-5.
Yeah, I mean, statistically last year that defense was worst ever for a program. So, they have to get it together. There's no shortage of talent, but the COVID season, the lack of camp, none of those things work this year. So they got to find a way to bring it together. And honestly, I don't even think UCLA is in the same tier. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. They did have an extra week to warm up, so we'll see if they can.
And then the only other game, like, I know a lot of people are going to be interested in Notre Dame, Florida State. I'm really not. I kind of am excited about Louisville, Ole Miss, because I'm very curious about this year.
Well, it's the Lane effect, right? You watch with intrigue because even though he's been so unsuccessful everywhere he's been, there's still this thought that he can come and churn some things up. And I should say he's been very unsuccessful as a head coach. He's had okay success as an assistant, but
we'll see. This year will let us know, right? If it's that same thing or if he turned a corner.
Yeah.
But I agree. We'll know.
It's intriguing. So yeah, without question, the Georgia Clemson game is.
But it's crazy because I can't watch it obviously because I'll be at in the Rose Bowl, but I just don't really care too much about it. Like, I know that's crazy, but like I just don't care too much because it's not going to matter at the end of the day. Like, Clemson can still win the ACC and get in the playoff. Georgia can still win the SEC and get in the playoff.
Yeah.
There's no stakes. Like LSU, there's a lot of stake in this because if LSU loses to UCLA, they're not. I don't think they'd get in, even if they run the table.
Yeah,
personally,
and
that's up for debate. But or like Penn State, Wisconsin, like they may not be fighting for best in the Big Ten, but Penn State, Wisconsin, this game can determine whether or not they get into the Big Ten championship game or not.
Yeah,
like whereas Georgia, Clemson, it doesn't matter.
So the only other question I have is, what do you think the final spread will be on this Bama Miami game? Think domination, or do you think?
Give me 20. I'll take 22.
22.
I'll take 22, and I think it's going to be a 30-point game, and I think Miami scores late and like garbage or whatever. So technically, it's going to be a 30-point game the whole time, but
yeah,
I think it ends up being closer to 20.
I think that's a pretty fair estimate, honestly.
Because Bryce Young's not a slouch either. Like, they'll be fine. Alabama's fine. I know people are like, oh, but they lost. Like, they'll be fine. If there's one thing I've learned about playing in the SEC West specifically, they're fine.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
We've seen how that movie ends. I'm not,
right.
Not too.
But I'm just excited football's back, man. I am. I'm excited football's back. We were talking. I remember when I was moving in June. You said it. You were like, dude, this is going to come up so quick. And it did. Oh, yeah. Football season came so fast.
I hope that these conferences, the big conferences, I hope that the individual schools are smart about how they vet people coming into the stadiums and that we actually protect this season in terms of being able to watch it live. Last season was painful, dude. I will watch football regardless of what forum you put it in.
Right.
But not having fans, man, it took
even watching from home, no fans is weird.
It took a whole level of spirit out of the game. Last year I went to one NFL game. I watched Cowboys and Browns, and it was like quarter capacity, and even that, it's just not the same, man. I feel like half the experience is the energy and the vibe. So I'm hoping that we get to protect this season and it carries on. Unfortunately, all these conferences, they already have the playbook for how to shut things down. So if anything even goes kind of sideways, they'll do it in a heartbeat. So I'm hoping it stays clean.
Yeah, true. Well, cool. Well, yeah, we'll obviously be watching quite a bit. I think the only other thing I wanted to make sure that we touched on was completely kind of 180 from college football is old man Lupo, Dr. Lupo, moving over to YouTube. And not particularly, like, I don't think either of us are big Dr. Lupo fans. But we've been talking a lot about the kind of streaming meta and different platforms and that sort of platform war. This to me seems like outside of Ninja to Mixer, like this is definitely the biggest jump, right, of streamers to platform. Even Shroud has his people, but Lupo just seemed like such a mainstay on Twitch that it's interesting to see him hopping over.
Well, I think it's an important note because a lot of commentary is going to be that he wasn't the first to do it. But what's unique about Dr. Lupo as opposed to Dr. Disrespect is this is an exclusive deal that he's signing and he's jumping over. Like, obviously, Valkyrie had gone over prior. All of that is known, but I think in recent memory, I mean, this is huge for YouTube. But it only means something like Dr. Lupo will be successful no matter what platform he's on, but it'll only mean something to YouTube if they continue to push the envelope on a dedicated streaming space on their platform.
Yeah. Which seems inevitable.
You would think. I mean, they're pushing in the right direction. They've added clipping, right, which is a big part of the user experience. They've also have the opportunity. They're starting to integrate a lot of the streaming into the actual video playback. So if you upload a video, people can actually donate to your videos as if they were watching a stream. So you now have an additional revenue source if you utilize YouTube. But discoverability is the big thing, man. If you go on Twitch right now, it's almost mindless how easy it is to find either a particular streamer you want to watch or a particular game that you want to watch. And not that YouTube doesn't have a competent search bar, but it's not a dedicated gaming space. So until they push the envelope on providing that, and I don't know if it's an entirely separate URL, a separate home, or what. But
I think it's personally, I would assume that the best way for them to do it would be youtube.com doesn't change that homepage, but it becomes something on the left, right?
Yeah.
Like it becomes like live, and then live you go and it looks a lot more like Twitch on there, because YouTube's, I think we're all in agreement, YouTube's UI is exponentially better than Twitch. It's so much easier to use. It's so much easier to see. Discoverability is higher. But what Twitch has is it's just so comfortable and easy on Twitch. There's hosting. There's, you can shout out other creators. You can pull up channels and see who they're looking at and who they're playing with. But on YouTube, the whole point is that when you live stream, you don't transfer live stream to live stream. It's not a TV show. You're watching them, and then the whole point is to move content towards that person's channel. So I don't think you're ever gonna get the algorithm, or I don't know what the word is, but it's never gonna be as easy to find other creators on YouTube, unless they decide to put a whole lot of effort into it, which I just don't think they'll ever put that much effort into it. But there's ways that they can make it good enough to where people are like, no, I'm gonna go to YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I think YouTube has a familiarity, right? Like our generation grew up using it in a very different way, but it's still the same experience. Like you mentioned the UI, it's the same base experience, which I think is good. I think the point that I'm trying to make is Dr. Lupo is a big enough streamer that he can make it worthwhile for YouTube to make some of these changes, because the reality is like no matter how much bitching and moaning we do in the gaming community that there needs to be a true rival to Twitch, YouTube is never ever going to prioritize it because it's not its revenue maker. It still is a video platform. It's an upload based platform. So they would be silly to forget about that side of the business or even like split their resources halfway. But they need to do something, because I think there's a real opportunity to strike right now. I think a lot of people are. So I think a few months ago, there was a lot of like negative attention on Twitch because of what Twitch itself was doing. And some of the, and it doesn't matter what side you fall on, right? Some of the identity politics that were so key to their platform and the things that they enforced and didn't enforce. So that caused tension in the gaming community. What I'm noticing now is that wave has kind of ended, but there's a lot of there's like these like shadow hate raids that are happening. Like there's a lot of really sketchy shit that's happening to like mid-level streamers. It seems like almost half the streamers I've followed at that like middle tier in the past month have had to take like mental breaks because Twitch is doing nothing to protect them from viewers that would do them harm. So like Twitch continues to give YouTube opportunities to be like, we're going to take this market share away from you. And it starts there. It starts with bringing big creators over. Dr. Disrespect, Dr. Lupo, that gives you a reason to turn on YouTube with the intent of watching streaming. And then it can expand from there, which I think is the first piece. But they've got to, now's the time. They got to make this push. It'll be all for naught if they just think they're going to sign a big name every 6 months and that's going to do it. I think it's going to take a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's good. Competition is always going to be good. And I think it's time that Twitch is forced to make some changes.
Yeah, no doubt.
Nice. Well, I told you earlier, I think I said something about like, what are you watching this week that I wanted to end on, but we can do that. Or I think something that I just thought about was maybe suggest like a YouTube video or a YouTube creator that you've been watching, or Twitch live streamer or whatever, right? Like whatever it is, something that you've been watching that you think other people would find enjoyment in as well. and I can go first if you need time to think about it. So I saw this earlier in the week. Intel did a they call it Gamer Days or whatever. It's like this event that they're doing. And one of the things that they did was Dr. Lupo. Speaking of Dr. Lupo, kind of tying it back in, they invited him out to this stage, this like theater, and he actually played through Destiny's most recent raid, Destiny 2's most recent raid, Deepstone Crypt, and he played through it, but instead of him going through with all the volume on, it was a live orchestra performing all of the music for the raid instead of listening to the music in the raid, and it was awesome. And there was and the middle part of the raid, there's a jumping puzzle, and the song is called Deepstone Lullaby, and it is one of the coolest things. And Lupo even says, he's like, I have chills right now. Like, it's one of the coolest things in a video game I've ever seen. So I guess when we upload this, we can link this at the bottom. In the description, but that's a video I saw. It's about 26 minutes, so it's on the longer side, but super worth a watch if you love video games and especially video game music.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll need to check that out myself. I didn't know about it, but it sounds really cool. One thing that's really captured my attention lately, and this is kind of a cop-out because it's not a specific video, but
they're just whatever you're watching, man.
I have been really diving into Healthy Gamer GG. I don't know if you're familiar with his content.
I think I've heard the name.
But basically, he is a doctor. He's a psychiatrist. And he's spent the bulk of his career focusing on addiction and specifically video game addiction, which then parlayed into a lifelong journey for him to help out I guess folks in our generation. It started as a gaming focus, but it stretched out to different aspects that only our generation would relate to. And so he streams and he does YouTube videos, and he either just launched or he's about to launch basically like a self-guided exploration through your mind, right? So it's like kind of like at-home psychiatry, but everything is through the lens of gaming. So he's, it sounds a little cringy, but like some of the vocabulary he uses in the way that he describes it, he says that this thing that he's launching is like a choose your own adventure, like storybook, because you, based on your feedback, that spider web will spread out, and he's got different modules that he'll talk on.
Nice.
Some of his YouTube content is really powerful, man. He'll have big streamers on there, and they'll, whether or not they're struggling through something particular or not, he brings folks in and has really deep conversation. He got really big because his first big interview was with Wreckful right before he committed suicide. So that kind of launched him, and he's been doing that ever since, really exploring these big names in streaming, big names in content. So there's a lot of really good stuff there, a lot of stuff that resonates, that you can certainly relate to. And it's also like healthy content too, like in terms of the length. Usually what he posts will be 20 or 30 minutes long, so it's almost like a light podcast in that you can have it on as background noise, and there's enough content there to make it worth it.
Nice. Sounds good. Yeah, I looked him up while you're doing it. I know I've seen his face. I didn't know that was Healthy Gamer GG, but I've seen him on like Trainwreck's podcast that'll do. He's sometimes on that, and I've seen like small clips and stuff of his live stream. So awesome. I will definitely check that out as well. Cool. Well, nice. Well, this is fun as a first like thing. I went longer than I thought we would. After we went through the first thing, I was like, oh man, I don't know if we're gonna be able to make this an hour.
Well, we didn't spend a whole lot of time on the I guess what's happening around the world, but as usual, football and sports caused us to word vomit for an hour. So
football's king, baby. So maybe in the future we try and I don't know. We're not going to be able to avoid it. I say that we're not going to be able to avoid it.
I say we let it flow.
Sure. Dope. Well, yeah. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone watching, and we'll catch you later.
Yeah, and just FYI, we're aiming to do this each Monday. So we will, for the time being, we're going to record on Monday and post later in the week. Try to make this a weekly thing. So we shall.
And I'm
be
sure
back.
we'll stream it later soon. At some point, we'll be streaming it. So
That'll be the long-term goal.
nice. Sounds good. Y'all have a good one.
All right. Peace out.
Yep.